Why is it in a jar? Pickled Aggie. Look at the tie. Look at the collar. 70s, anyone? Oh, yeah, there she is. It's horrifying. I mean, in a good way. Hello everyone, I am Chris Butler and I am the writer and one of the directors of the film ParaNorman. And I'm here today in the LAIKA archives to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the movie and to take a look at the very early stages of development. On every movie, certainly every movie that I've worked on, there are a number of aha moments. And they normally come with a piece of imagery, whether it's a piece of art, whether it's a painting or a sculpt, where you see it and you think, that's the movie, we've got it. And I think everything on this table here was that moment for me. I thought, this should be a sculpt, this should be a puppet, this should be moving, we need to give this life. And a little bit further on in the process, when I first was shown this RP sequence and animated when moving, it was a zombie come to life in stop motion. And there's something quite magical about that. So here are some of the earliest drawings of Norman, also some pretty early sculpts, including this wobbly thing. This was a drawing that I did to kind of sum up the whole idea of the movie, which was a kid who can talk to zombies. And I gave this sketch to the legendary sculptor, Kent Melton. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, yep, we're making that and it's going to be great. But the process involves a lot of experimentation in the very early stages. I had an idea of what Norman should look like, and he was definitely influenced by me as a kid. But then, of course, I wanted to evolve. I wanted to turn into the best version of what's in my head. And one of the first people that we hired onto the production in the development stages was an artist called Heidi Smith. And as you can see, she spent a lot of time trying to find Norman. So I think this is Heidi's first ever drawing of Norman. I think this one here. And this was just based solely on reading the script. And he's definitely cute. Wasn't quite what I had in mind. I think this image here was probably the first time that I thought, that's our guy. And curiously enough, it's not a million miles away from the first drawing that I ever drew of Norman. So this is one of the earliest clay sculpts. I mean, it's almost like a clay sketch, really, rather than a finished sculpt. And this is the development artist just working with those initial sketches and starting to feel the character in 3 dimensions.
There's nothing wrong with being scared, Norman, so long as you don't let it change who you are.
The idea for Norman being able to talk to ghosts in the first place comes from an experience I had when I was a kid. My nana, my grandma, she used to tell me that when she died, she was going to come back as a ghost just to make sure I was okay. When I tell people, it's slightly unnerving, but as a child, it was really sweet. I thought it was a great idea. I loved the idea of my nana coming back so I could talk to her. And that is where the character of Grandma Babcock comes from. She is this sage-like figure, this mentor, if you like, who sticks around just so that she can make sure that Norman is on the right track. In the first conversations that I had with Heidi, I was like, let's treat ghosts like they're unformed. And she did some really amazing sketches. The ghost is in anguish. They're barely held together. There's a human form in there, but it's almost like it's not really coming together. The problem with this was that they're not really recognizable people. They're creepy and they're cool, so maybe there's something in there that we can use. But we really needed to see these ghosts as individuals. So you can see she's got the form of a Victorian man, but the smoke in his pipe is almost part of him. Some beautiful, beautiful images, but again, not quite right for the movie. A big idea in the movie is that ghosts aren't really what you think they are. In fact, the whole movie is about not judging a book by its cover. The zombies aren't what you think. The ghosts aren't what you think. The kids aren't even what you think. And a big part of that for me was making the ghosts into likable individuals, likable characters.
Does anyone smell burning?
Hey, peace, man.
Totally.
As you were, soldier.
Sir, yes, sir.
Equally as important as Norman, or as any character in the movie, is the location itself. I wanted the fictional town of Blyth Hollow to have its own distinct identity, and a lot of that came from Salem, Massachusetts. There's this historical town that has seen better days, and almost its entire existence relies on this awful thing that happened 300 years ago. What I wanted to get into the movie was this balance between history and tacky tourism. I had a great time working with the initial development artists, Ross Stewart and Tom Moore. I got the chance to work with them remotely. I think some of these early images of just street corners, that's when I started to feel this is the right place. This is Blyth Hollow. There's trash in the gutter, there's graffiti on the walls. This is not some fantasy pristine animated town. This is a real place. What I like here about a lot of this artwork is the almost nervous line quality. So then the question is, well, how do we recreate this in 3 dimensions? And that's what we have here, is the production designer and his visual development team taking these sketches and recreating them in 3 dimensions. What I love about this is that it maintains that scratchy, unfinished feel of a pencil sketch. We got to show this lived-in quality of Blyth Hollow in Norman's first walk through town. You know, it's a tattered plastic bag on a chain link fence, a rusted old bicycle. They were things that really spoke to the identity of this town. And it was important for me and the story that Blyth Hollow felt like it was a little bit rotten around the edges, just like a zombie. This table represents some of my favorite stuff, and that is early visual development, or biz dev, as we call it. What we've been doing at the studio since our very first movie is trying to bring our VFX work and our practical work together so that it feels like it's the same world. So what we will always do is create something. We will build something physically. We will create a maquette or a sculpt, and we will give that to the VFX department so that every time we have a CG element in the movie, it feels just like the puppets that are standing alongside it or the props that are nearby it. This was one of the earliest Viz Dev pieces, and this was just about the team experimenting with different materials to see what we could use as like a signature style for the clouds and for Aggie and the ghosts in the movie. It's kind of crazy looking, but there's a lot going on here that ultimately formed what you see in the movie. So for example, this kind of netting, this mesh feel, led us to the idea of using tulle as like a key design fabric throughout the movie. Here we've got one of the spectral hands that comes out of the cloud. It was a bit of a nod to the kind of old Evil Dead effects, but it was also embracing what was so successful about this early Viz Dev work.
It's her.
The townsfolk of Blyth Hollow have a very particular idea about the witch. As far as they're concerned, she's this villainous old hag who put a curse on the town. And I wanted to make the audience complicit in this. So I wanted to use the design of the film to create this idea in the audience of what that witch was. This is a table full of early exploration for the character of Aggie, the witch's ghost. Some of this exploration is my favorite in the movie. And I remember those first instances of walking into the room and seeing these sculpts and thinking, we've got something really special here. The visual development department and the art department, they came up with some amazing ideas about how to visualize this angry little girl. I think it was Ross Stewart who first came up with the idea of blowing ink, because I wanted that anger to be manifest. She's so angry that it's become part of her body, it's become part of her imagery. And he came up with the idea of this electrical, all these like lightning bolts coming off her. So we have these amazing, really powerful sketches with ink blots that have been blown, and they kind of form these arcs of energy relating to Norman. Norman's hair stands on end. Aggie has the same gift as Norman. So what was the natural way to show that there are similarities between them? They are relatives. And so Heidi did this almost like Aggie has been electrocuted. So her hair is standing on end, but it's a lot more violent than Norman. So it's sticking out at all angles. It looks like she's been zapped with electricity. And when I saw that, I was like, yes, this is something cool. How to create that in 3 dimensions though was the next trick. And so the Viz Dev department started coming up with these exquisite sculpts, like the electricity that's suggested in this maquette here. I think that was done with glue. I think that one is one of my favorites just because it's so delicate and there's real movement and energy in it. And yet you've still got this little kid's face in the center, so you know exactly where to look.
They hurt me! So you hurt them back? I wanted everyone to see how rotten they were. You're just like them, Agatha! No, I'm not! You're a bully! No, I'm not!
Thank you for joining me in the archives today. There's something truly magical about walking into a room and seeing a table that's full of gorgeous sculpts, gorgeous artwork that's been created by very, very talented people. I haven't seen a lot of it in a long time, and it is a real pleasure to be able to share it with you today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.